If there's one thing the console wars are famous for, it's rolling out the exclusives. There are some games only available for certain platforms. Some of these exclusives are masterpieces, while others, not so much. Which ones are the best? Well, that's exactly what we'll be focusing on in this video, and you'll be surprised to see what's in our final entry. Before we begin, we want to make a huge shout out to Sketchy Zay for suggesting this video topic for today. Be sure to subscribe and maybe your suggestion could be our next video. What up, Sketchy Zay? Without further ado, here are 10 console exclusives too good to stay exclusive. BLOODBORNE. The Dark Souls series has truly made a name for itself in gaming history. For the longest time, it has become the face of the super hard and difficult genre. In fact, it's even a meme at this point to call a game the Dark Souls of blank, like we have seen with Cuphead and Crash Bandicoot. However, perhaps one of the best games in From Software's arsenal is a PS4 exclusive known as BLOODBORNE. Released in 2015, this game did not take place in the Dark Souls universe, but in the city of Yharnam, a Gothic-inspired world where instead of souls, players use blood to grow stronger. This game was praised for its combat even though it was similar to the Dark Souls games before it. The difference between the two franchises, well, that Dark Souls has an emphasis on patience and waiting for the right moment to strike, BLOODBORNE rewarded you for being aggressive. In the game, you could recover some health after being hit if you struck your enemies. This fine line between artful dodging and vicious attacking made for an adrenaline-pumping game that pleased hardcore fans as well as newcomers. The only caveat to this is, because it was a PS4 exclusive, many fans were upset they could not play the game on PC or Xbox. With a game this good coming from a developer that has made the franchise as spectacular as Dark Souls, this game is too good to be an exclusive title. Halo. What is really left to say about this franchise? It's basically the Xbox equivalent of Mario with all that Halo has done. It has single-handedly changed the face of modern first-person shooters, and while the franchise may have gotten away from itself in more recent games, Halo Combat Evolved still remains one of the most important games in modern gaming history. So why is it just shelved to the Xbox? We realize you can play Xbox on PC easily, but this list is about console exclusives, meaning if you had a Nintendo system or PlayStation during that time, you were out of luck. So for the 3 people watching who have no clue what Halo is, let's give you the skinny. Halo is a first-person shooter series where you play, for the most part, as Master Chief, Spartan Elite, and Kicker of Covenant Ass. Well, now that that's out of the way, we can talk more about what Halo did for the gaming world. Rechargeable shields, an incredible soundtrack, and iconic locations. What more could you ask for? We know this franchise put Xbox into the spotlight as an actual console and gave the system an identity overall, but one has to wonder what heights the franchise would have gone to if it had been available for all systems. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog, just saying the name can summon a swell of conflicting emotions. You may think of the classic 2D side-scrollers that gave Mario a run for his money as the king of platformers, or you think of the last 10 years of 3D Sonic games and wonder where it all went wrong. Thankfully, we're going to be talking about the beginning where Sonic was good and innocent. Sonic the Hedgehog was slated to be Sega's answer to Mario, who, at the time of release, was utterly dominating the platforming market. You may not think it was possible, but there was a short time where Mario and Sonic were neck and neck when it came to popularity. Nowadays, you see Sonic being the epitome of memes and bad games, but back then there was a serious competition between the two. What could have been done to make Sonic more appealing? Perhaps if his first game was not just on the Sega Genesis, it would have been better. Of course, there's an obvious problem with making something like Sonic for all consoles. Sega wanted to beat Mario, not just join him on the same system. Today you can play Sonic on almost every system under the sun, but back then, maybe if the rivalry between the two was not so fierce, they would have been allies instead of enemies. War never changes. The Legend of Zelda. Okay, hear us out on this one. Yes, The Legend of Zelda has been a Nintendo favorite for decades now and is one of the flagship franchises for the company. However, think of the possibilities for Zelda if it were slated to be released for other systems. Nintendo is a master at making memorable games and all, but time after time, the limitations of their hardware has left their games looking a little dated. Now, when you look at Breath of the Wild on the Switch, you're probably thinking, what are you guys talking about? That game looks amazing. And yes, it does. It is perhaps one of Nintendo's best-looking games of all time. But what if we could have gotten something like Breath of the Wild on a PlayStation or an Xbox? Again, ludicrous on paper, but in theory, the possibilities would have been endless. Perhaps we should be looking at this in a different way. If the original Legend of Zelda, released in 1986, came out for more than just the NES, think about how much more we could have gotten out of the franchise. If only Nintendo didn't have such an iron grip on our favorite green elf warrior and his quest to save Hyrule. Now, for the veteran gamers out there, you may remember the Philips CDI Zelda games. And while those were obviously horrible, if Nintendo was more open to experimenting and letting other developers handle their games, we might have gotten a third-party Zelda game that was amazing. Final Fantasy VII. Now, what else could be done to improve Final Fantasy VII? After 7 Final Fantasies, this is the one that garners worldwide recognition and has joined the ranks of Super Mario Bros. And Halo Combat Evolved as one of the greatest games in history. So how did this all happen? Well, it could be a combination of things. The pre-rendered cutscenes on the PlayStation system, Cloud's iconic Buster Sword which has permeated in our popular culture, or is it just a very well-made game? If you answered all of the above, congratulations! You are almost correct. Honestly, there's been so many reasons this game succeeded as much as it did. We just don't have time to talk about the long and extensive story and all the memorable characters. We know later Final Fantasy games would branch out to other consoles, and heck, even Final Fantasy VII can be played on Steam. However, what Xbox players got was a little less than grand. The first Final Fantasy game to be released on multiple consoles was Final Fantasy XIII, and subsequently Final Fantasy XIII-2 and Lightning Returns. To this day, Final Fantasy XIII is regarded as one of the worst universes in the franchise. We needed Final Fantasy VII, Square Enix. We needed something pure to tread into other consoles. But to be perfectly honest, PlayStation can keep Final Fantasy XIII. Gears of War. Looking back on it now, the Xbox consoles really pushed the boundaries of shooters. For the longest time, even back when Halo was released, cover-based shooting and executions via melee were almost unheard of. But Gears of War really cranked the brutal level up to 11. Gears of War exploded onto the scene back in 2006, oh my god, I'm old, and has lasted a good long while Gears of War 4 being released in 2016. The game introduced some of the most brutal shooting mechanics to date, bringing in cover-based shooting and melee executions via awesome chainsaw guns, as well as the active reload mechanic which rewarded players on how they reloaded, giving them extra damage if they completed an active reload. Oh yeah. In addition to all this, the game helped popularize the third-person perspective, something that has continued throughout the series. So with all Gears of War had to offer, why does this need to stay on the Xbox? One could ask the question, seeing as Xbox already has one revolutionary genre-defining shooter under its belt with the Halo franchise, but two, quit being a hog, Microsoft. It's just unacceptable. That being said, this game franchise coupled with Halo would solidify the Xbox as a console for shooters, a title that wouldn't be too hotly contested until the PlayStation threw its hat in the ring. Of course, Nintendo still has yet to get on that trend, but given their direction, we don't see it happening anytime soon. Pokemon. Gotta catch 'em all, gotta play 'em all. Pokemon is a rare phenomenon, not only dominates multiple gaming markets with handheld games, cards, and toys, but also bridges the generational gap. With the release of Pokemon Go, we've seen entire families get in on the fun, and not in the hokey fun for the whole family kind of way. Parents who grew up with Pokemon can now interact with their kids who are growing up with Pokemon. It's really beautiful if you think about it. All of this was accomplished with a deceptively simple market slogan, gotta catch 'em all. In fact, Pokemon probably could have thrived on any platform since it was not tied down to simply video games, even though that's where it all started. We would probably still have the movies, the anime, the plush toys, the cards, and everything in between the world of Pokemon. All things considered, Nintendo scooping up Pokemon was perhaps the perfect fit. Nintendo through and through has always wanted to appeal to a general audience. Sony and Microsoft do too, but Nintendo always had the more family-friendly roster of games. While it may be amazing to see Pokemon games on different systems, Pokemon might be the only game franchise on this list which might have survived on any and all systems, since it's more than a video game franchise, but an all-encompassing media outlet. Uncharted. Indiana Jones needed to have some charm and snark to him, which is why Uncharted came to be. While people fawned over Lara Croft back then, Nathan Drake has come into his own thanks to the Uncharted series. Uncharted rolled out onto the scene in 2007 and has been dodging and shooting its way into our hearts for over 10 years now. The Uncharted series has the look and feel of an Indiana Jones movie, mixed with the heart-pounding action of a Tomb Raider game. Coupled with the fact that Uncharted has an engaging story and cinematic cutscenes, it feels more like an interactive movie than a video game. This is something fans of the series have been split on. Does the video game really need a cinematic experience? Regardless of whether you agree or disagree, Uncharted offers more than just great cutscenes. The game plays in third person, a perspective Gears of War along with Uncharted helped popularize. Now these Uncharted games have only gone up in quality to the point where one has to ask why are they even exclusives at all? It is true that when it comes to shooters, the Xbox had it down to a science at this point. With Halo and Gears of War, Xbox might have taken Uncharted to the next level in a game's mechanics sense. Still, Uncharted would help Sony and PlayStation get into the shooter genre. It wasn't their first shooter, but it was one of their best. Persona 5. I think if there's a game franchise that is slowly but surely winning over the hearts of gamers, it's Persona. With each installment, this series gains more and more traction. Persona 5 dropped last year and has made big waves since then. The game features a cast of well-designed characters with a very strong story element, and it's just bursting with flavor and appeal. In the past, there has been anime adaptations of the games that have also garnered their own attention, and this one is no exception, with an anime to begin airing in Japan later this year. Now with the hot franchise, one has to ask, why are they keeping it to just one system? Well, looking at the fact that this is an anime-driven video game set in Japan, this title doesn't exactly fit the Xbox. Also, the look and feel of this game doesn't fit well with the Nintendo either. But is it really a bad thing to stand out like this? We here at TheGamer could see games like Persona being a welcome fit on the Switch mechanic-wise, and if we're being honest, Nintendo could branch out into other franchises for their games. There's no sense in limiting yourself if the games are good, but with an awesome story and a rich cast of characters, this JRPG is just too good to stick to the PlayStation. Crash Bandicoot. Yup, here it is, the Dark Souls of platformers. See, we told you the meme had spread. Crash Bandicoot has been a staple of Sony's gaming mascots along with Ratchet & Clank, Spyro, and Jak and Daxter. Although Spyro is not around anymore, and Jak and Daxter have also been retired for the most part, Crash has been shelved for the better part of a decade until the Insane trilogy was released last year. This game was a collection of the original Crash games, except they were all given a full next-gen HD makeover, which, in reality, meant they had to make all 3 games over again. Still, even in this new state, Crash is as difficult as ever. This is because the use of a third-person perspective in a 3D environment. You see, unlike traditional platformers, most of the levels you were placed behind Crash, and as such, it added an extra layer of difficulty when you had to land jumps. Don't believe us? Just play the Turtle Bridge level and you'll experience a truly infuriating game. What's even more apparent is that when there is an HD remake, the push to cross consoles has never been stronger. Given the game's cartoony art style and humor, this might have been a half-decent Nintendo title, or maybe even benefited from the Switch control scheme and mechanics. And those were some of the best exclusive console titles we feel are just too good to stay exclusives. Do you have a favorite console exclusive? Which exclusive would you like to see on your favorite system? Let us know down in the comments section below. And we want to thank Sketchy Zay one more time for suggesting this video. Be sure to subscribe to TheGamer for more exciting gaming content. Thanks for watching.